everyone, and thank you for joining me today for our Beyond the Shelf Tween book discussion. We are going to be discussing the first 9 chapters of our selection, The Secret Garden, written by Frances Hodgson Burnett. So I hope that you have picked up a copy of this book. There are several available at your public library. There's also an e-version that you can download for free. Since The Secret Garden is public domain, there are a lot of free copies available online for download. We're going to go ahead and jump right in to the book and start discussing it. So we go back to the first chapter, and I want you to think about where this story begins. Where are we when we meet Mary? And I hope that you remember that we are in India. But it's never fully explained why they're in India, but we have a lot of clues as to why her family is there. And we guess because of the way that they phrased the work of her father and that he's busy, that he works for the British or the English government in India. And we see that Mary doesn't have very much association, contact with people. And the ones that she does have contact with, she actually feels like she's superior. And we start to see that's the way she's been brought up. And everybody that is around her caters to her to keep her pleased. As the first chapter goes, we see that something drastic happens. So what happens to everyone? The chapter is entitled, There's No One Left. So what does that mean in this first chapter? Well, we know that many people get sick or run away in the first chapter, and it leaves Mary alone. And if we kind of use context clues, we see that there's been a cholera outbreak, and that is revealed sort of at the end of that chapter when we see that Mary, really is by herself. She's alone. She doesn't know what's going on, but we do find out that it's because people are scared because there's been this outbreak of this very dangerous and deadly disease. I'm interested to know what you think of Mary at the beginning of the book. She's portrayed as being rude and sort of obnoxious. She's not very pleasant at all. And it's strange to have our main character be so unpleasant. So what do you think is going to happen to Mary as the story goes on? Do you think she's going to remain this child that just is really disagreeable and doesn't have any friends? Or do you think that her character is going to start developing? Okay, we're going to move into the next chapter, and this is where we find again that Mary is just a kind of awful kid. And the title of this chapter is Mistress Mary Quite Contrary. And we know that it's titled this because she is now living with a family in the area until she has a guardian come and pick her up. And she doesn't agree very much with the other children. They don't understand her. She's rude to them, and so they don't get along. And oftentimes this leads to children kind of acting out, calling names, and that's what they're doing to Mary in this chapter. We also see that Miss Crawford, which is the wife and the mother of the family that she's living with, is the first person we really see that's showing kindness to Mary. And do you remember how she reacts to this? Well, she doesn't take it very well. She's never had anybody really show her kindness. She's very stiff when Miss Crawford tries to embrace her. She doesn't know what's happening. And so she just doesn't understand the whole family dynamic. She's not used to being in this setting. So we start to see a little bit more about her character here as well. And then we are introduced to Miss Medlock, and she is kind of the ruler of the house that she's going to. She is the housekeeper. She kind of maintains the property and the staff that's there. And so we're introduced to her, and what do you think about her? Is she very pleasant? Well, she also comes off as a little cold, but we see that Mary doesn't do anything to kind of promote a good relationship with Miss Medlock. She doesn't know exactly what to say. She doesn't know what questions to ask. She's really confused about where she's going. We know from the previous chapter when the Crawford kids asked where she was going, who she was going to live with, she really didn't know, and she didn't even know she had this uncle that she was going to live with. So as they're traveling in the third chapter, we're introduced to a place called the Moor. So have you ever heard of a moor, and did you know what that was before reading this book? Well, Mary, she is also in the dark about a moor, and she doesn't quite know what it is. So we know she asks questions. She shows interest in the moor. And can you remember how Miss Medlock describes the moor? Do you think she's a fan? She really describes it as dreary, and it's sort of a wild land. But Mary is still unconvinced because she thinks it really looks like the sea. When she looks out the window, it's just this vast, almost nothingness. And she's really confused, and she's never seen a landscape like this. So that is her setting before she gets to the house where she's going to be living. And so when she finally arrives to Mr. Craven's manor, what's your first impression of the manor? We see in the book that Misselthwaite Manor is very dark. We know it's the setting, it's raining and everything, but we also know that they arrive and there's only one light on. There's not a welcoming committee. Mary is greeted just by sort of the butler who opens the door, and he, again, doesn't, show any emotion when he's welcoming her. It's sort of like they're all being put in a situation they don't want to be in to care for Mary. So it's interesting because so far we've seen very dreary settings for this book. And again, Mary, the theme of no one really caring about her, is kind of continuing. Then we start to meet other characters. In chapter 4, it's entitled Martha. So this is when we meet Martha. And Martha's really the first person that is warm and welcoming to Mary. So we know Mary wakes up that first day. She first sees the moor, and then she sees Martha, and she asks about the moor, where she is, and she wants to know more about this environment she's living in. And Martha is very chatty. She is not scared to talk to Mary. She's friendly. And even though we see that Mary is continuing to be rude and treat Martha that she's not an equal, Martha kind of just lets us go. She doesn't act out, and she remains friendly to Mary. This is also the first time that we learn about this locked garden that is on the grounds that no one's been in for 10 years. And we see that Mary finally is showing interest in something, and it's this locked garden. She doesn't exactly know what it is, but she's intrigued by it, so she wants to know more. So she gets out of the house and she meets another character, and he's the gardener. So Ben Weatherstaff. And when we meet Ben, he is also a kind of a peculiar character. He isn't very welcoming, but we can see little bits and pieces in this chapter of him having a connection with Mary. So we know that he's sort of gruff at the beginning, but Mary, asks anyway, asks questions. She's not put off by his mannerisms. And she actually admits to him that she's lonely and she doesn't have any friends. And we know that this is the first time he's looking at her now as what she is. She's really just a lonely child who has left everything that she's known, and now she's in this environment and growing up in this place that she doesn't have friends, she doesn't know the ways, and you can start to see that he actually resets what she is in his mind. So that's really interesting. We also meet the Robin for the first time. Now, the Robin is not a person, but he is a very important character in the story. The Robin will keep popping up and keep being a very key player in the story of the Secret Garden. So this is the first time we see that Mary meets him, and her reaction to the Robin is very different from the people that she's met so far. She almost instantly has this connection and this fondness of the Robin. She actually wants to make friends with him. So What do you think the connection is and the reasoning behind that? Why do you think it's easier for Mary to make friends with a robin? And why does she so badly want him to accept her and follow her and be a friend to her? Okay, so let me know, post in the comments, reach out to us and let us know what you think about the robin in this story. Also, in this chapter, we start to see Ben's personality even take another turn. So he starts off gruff, he then warms up a little bit, and then at the end, he's abruptly kind of mean again. He wants her to go away because she starts asking questions about the garden and about roses and things like that. And he's immediately kind of, saying, leave me alone. I don't want to talk about this. And it's almost like she has caught him reminiscing about something that he shouldn't be. So that's interesting. And I think that the way it's been led up to, that it's going to have some connections later in the story. So I'm interested to see how Ben is going to continue to be a key player here. We then go into the 5th chapter, and this chapter is called A Cry in the Corridor. So we know that Mary is continuing to explore and play in the garden, but we also know in this chapter that she hears something towards the end of the chapter. She's convinced that she hears a cry, somebody crying, and Martha is with her, and when she asks, she's surprised that Martha denies it. She's very quick to react and say, no, you didn't hear anything, and it's almost like she's covering up something. So this is a kind of a new element, a new mystery in the book. Not only do we want to know about the secret garden, but we also want to know about where is this cry coming from. So we know that even though Martha told Mary that it was nothing, we kind of sense that she doesn't really believe Martha. So what do you think? Do you think Mary's convinced, or do you think this is going to be something that we keep looking for in this story? Okay, now we're going to go to chapter 6, and again, the title suggests that this person crying is not going to go away. This is going to be something that we need to figure out. So Mary really wants to start exploring more. She wonders about Martha's family. Martha is going away, and she's sort of curious about what that looks like when she goes home. So we start to see that Mary is particularly interested in Martha's mom and in her brother Dickon. So we see this, and she asks questions, she's interested, and then we know that Mary goes away. And actually, Mary is quite sad when Martha leaves for her time at home. So what's this tell us about their relationship? Does Mary still consider Martha just annoying and sort of a staff that is beneath her? Or is she starting to see Martha as more of a friend? What do you think? Well, we know that Martha does leave for the day and for the night, and so she leaves Mary really with nobody there in the house that she talks to. So Mary goes and explores, and do you remember what she finds and what she hears in her explorations of the house? She starts to see portraits and toys. She even finds some mice, and she is talking to every one of these objects and things. So this also lets us know that Mary really is just a kid, and she's lonely. She's talking to the portrait. She's asking them questions. She wants to feel a connection with these things because she doesn't have a connection with the people around her. So this starts to kind of soften us towards Mary, because we can start seeing that there is something under there that's not just a cold heart. She does want things that other children want. She wants to be happy. She wants to be cared about. She wants to have friends. And then at the end of that chapter, we know again she finds this secret corridor that goes to this wing, and she hears a sound again. But we know that Miss Metlock really catches her before anything happens, and she disciplines Mary and tells her to stay out and stay in her room, and that's where that chapter ends. So then we move back outside. Martha is now back, and we start to see Mary look in the garden, and we see signs of spring. things are blooming and things are kind of sprouting out of the ground. So you see the first green in the garden, and also in the moor. The moor is becoming a prettier and more inhabitable place. So as Mary is exploring, the robin comes back, and the robin shows her a key element in finding her locked garden. And the robin kind of shows Mary where the secret key is that is going to open the door to the garden. Even though she doesn't know where the door is, this is a very key piece. And the key is not hidden very well. It's under just a thin layer of dirt. So I'm interested, do you think that after 10 years, the key would be buried in such a shallow place? Do you think that was a very good hiding place? What do you think about the key's location and Mary finding it really quite easily? Okay. The last 2 chapters we read for this week's story are The Robin Who Showed the Way. And in this chapter, chapter 8, we finally see that Mary does find the door to this. But before that happens, we know that Martha returns and she brings Mary something. And it's a gift from Martha's mom. It's a jumping rope. And Mary's reaction to this is really strange. She's really never received a gift from the heart like this. And so she's taken aback by it. But we see that she does feel a need to say thank you because she hasn't received a gift, and she really does appreciate it. But again, it shows how peculiar and just how unaccustomed to the kindness she is, because when she thanks Martha, she gives her sort of a stiff handshake. And, that's not really common reaction for most kids. And you can probably think back when you were a little younger, would your reaction would have been just to go up and give a stiff handshake when you were just very happy to receive a gift? Probably not. You probably would have jumped up and down. You probably would have hugged the giver or something like that. So again, we're finding out more about Mary as the story goes along. And then chapter 9, we know that Mary now is in the garden. She finds the door. Again, the robin has a key part in helping her find the door. And so she enters the garden, and it's sort of this mysterious place. It's actually, the title of this chapter is called The Strangest House. So that is a clue. It's, it's sort of this environment, this place, this house that now is strange, but we're going to find out soon that it's going to be all Mary's, and she's becomes attached to it quite quickly. We know that she wants this garden to remain a secret. She's actually named it the Secret Garden, and she wants this to be something that she can explore, that is available to her, and she wants to keep it a secret. As she's exploring the first day, we also see her start to cultivate the plants. So she doesn't know much about gardening, but just by looking at the plants there, she knows that they need more room and care to really thrive. And so she takes initiative and goes ahead, and even though she doesn't know what she's doing, she tries. She's trying to help these plants. So that's an interesting idea that we'll see if that plays out later in the book. So at the end of this chapter, we have discovered what is this mysterious secret garden. We know we are now in it, but just as one of the mysteries is sort of revealed, we have another mystery because the chapter ends again with a cry, with a noise. So she knows for sure now something is in the house that is making this noise, and somebody is there, and she needs to figure out who it is. So we're replacing one mystery sort of with another. So we'll see how that plays out and how that develops in the next few chapters. So for next week, we are going to be reading the next 9 chapters of the book. So that will be chapters 10 through 18. So I hope that you will continue reading this with me. And then next week we will talk about what happens in the story and kind of pose a few questions. But today we're going to do a craft that goes along with the story. And when I was looking at what we could do, I was thinking, what are some key elements in this first third of the chapter, or third of the book? So one of the key players was the robin. So I thought we are going to make our very own friendly robin, and then you can actually adapt this to be any kind of bird you want. I'm going to make mine a robin today, but it doesn't require very many things, and so this is a great craft to do right now when we're trying to stay in as much as possible. So all you need for this craft is some yarn, and this is going to determine the color of your bird. So I'm going to want red or some shade of red for my robin because the robin's breast is red. And then I'm going to choose brown. So I actually had this yarn here that is several different shades of brown, and that's going to work really well because I want 2 shades, if possible, of this secondary color. That's going to make it a little bit more vivid. So if you have just a dark brown and a light brown, that would be great for your robin. In addition to this, you're going to need some felt. So I have some gold felt. You can also use like an orange felt. If you don't have felt, you can use just paper for this. We aren't going to need very much of it, but you'll want that. I'm also going to be using an orange pipe cleaner. And then you're going to need just a few napkins. Actually, you probably just need 1 napkin if you're going to make 1 bird. But I chose a napkin that I had that was kind of a tan color. You can use anything you want. This will not show, so anything you have, scrap paper would be fine for this. And then in addition to this, I'm going to need some scissors, and I'm using a glue gun, or you can just use regular craft glue for this. The only other thing you need is a book, and this book I'm going to use just my copy of The Secret Garden. We are going to be using to start our first step. So I'm going to tilt the camera so you can see what I'm doing for our robin project. Okay, so I have my yarn here, so I'm just going to get a really long string of the yarn to start this project. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using the width of my book. And I'm going to hold the yarn here, and I'm just going to start wrapping around the width of my book here. I'm kind of going to count in my head. I want to wrap around about 15 to 20 times. You can even go more if you would like. So you're just going to keep wrapping and wrapping and wrapping. When you get your desired thickness and you want it to be a good amount, you're going to then take your scissors, and you see here where the cover of the book, there's a little bit of space here, perfect to put your scissors in, and we're just going to be cutting one end of our yarn. So now we have equal pieces here to work with. We're then going to find the middle of our yarn, and we're going to cut a smaller piece of yarn there, and we are going to tie this together in the middle. So I actually have that completed already, and we're going to do this with all 3 of our colors. So we have our red for the breast of our robin, and then I have 2 bundles of brown yarn that are slightly different, if possible, for that. So these are your key elements, and then we need 1 of our napkins here. So with our napkin, all I'm going to do is sort of crumble it into a loose ball here. So just a little wrinkled up ball is all we need. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my red, I'm going to lay it out on the table. I'm then going to take the color that I want to be the top of my robin, and I'm going to lay it across right here. So just like that. Now I have a cross. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my red on top of itself, and then fold this brown on top of itself. So now they are linked together like that. The next thing I'm going to do is take my yarn and cut again a small piece of both of my colors. And I'm going to tie a knot right under where those meet. Just going to clench it together there. So right under there I have a knot, and then I'm going to take my red and I will do that here. The same thing on the red side. So I'm going to just lay it and I'm going to tie a knot. Now you'll want to double knot it just so it doesn't come loose. But there we go. We now have two pieces. So it's going to look like this. You're going to have them linked and then secured together. So lay that down. Now we have our last bundle of yarn, and I'm just going to lay that again right over the middle here. And then I'm going to take my two ends and fold them over. Sort of grip it like this. Now this is where our bundle of napkins is going to come in handy, because when we did that, it really folds in on itself, and we want to give it a little bit of volume because this is going to be the body of our robin. So I'm going to take back this piece here and lay it back out, and now I'm going to place this bundle of napkins right on it and do it again. Fold it over. Make sure you're just getting your one side. And now you can already start to see, now we have some volume here in our robin. So that is going to be the robin's body. Next, we want to take our wings here, and we're going to be pulling those back. And this is where it's key to have different color yarn if possible, so that way you can really see the definition between the wing and the top of your robin. So once you do this, you are going to again get a piece of matching yarn and you're going to tie it off again. So I'm going to cut my piece. And I'm going to secure it right here where all of the three folded over bundles meet. Now at this point you can start kind of shaping and really manipulating your robin a little bit to make it look more like a bird. But I'm going to show you how I went from this to this by adding just a few elements. So the first thing we're going to do is make our beak. So I'm going to take my felt, and again, if you don't have felt, you can just use a piece of paper, but you don't need much. We're just going to fold over a small piece here, and then we are going to cut a triangle. So that way, when we open it up, we have a nice little beak here. This we are going to secure with glue right on our robin here. So you can just do that just with a little dot from a glue gun, or just craft glue will do. You don't need very much glue to secure this. So do that there. And then with my pipe cleaner, what I did here is I found the middle of my pipe cleaner, and then I put two fingers right here, and I folded on either side of my fingers. This is going to be what the body rests on. So we don't want it to be just one point because we want a little bit of stability there. Then you can determine how long you want the robin's legs to be, and then fold your feet. So I'm going to make 3 little claws here for my robin's foot, and this will also add some stability when it's standing up here. Now, if you don't have a pipe cleaner, you don't have to do this step. It just adds a little bit. So once I have it just like this, I'm going to turn my robin over, and I'm just going to work my fingers in here so I can slip my pipe cleaner through this and pull it until it's on that straight piece. So now my robin has some legs, just like that, and a beak. The last step after you shape it is just to kind of cut off some of these extra yarn pieces. We want it to be more of a straight edge. So the way I do it is I just hold it in my hand about 1.5 inches from where I tied it, and I'm just going to cut so it's straight here, so we don't have a lot of extra pieces. So this is a little messy, so make sure that you're doing this over a table, and then you can just go right into the trash with all of your clippings. But now we have a tidier little tail here, and this is also going to act as a support when your robin sits down on a table. So your finished product is going to be this. If you have the legs here, and you see how the tail is acting as kind of a base to sit on. And then this is a version if you don't use legs. So this is more of like a robin who's nesting. He's just laying down, and these turned out really cute. So I hope that you will do this, and you can make lots of variations of this on your favorite bird. If you have blue yarn, you can make a bluebird or a blue jay, or you can make a cardinal. So play around with this and see what kind of birds you come up with. But I hope that you enjoyed this week's Beyond the Shelf Tween book discussion. And remember that we are going to be reading the next 9 chapters. So I hope that you have a copy, and if not, you still have time to catch up and start reading with us. So thank you again, and I will see you next Thursday at 1:30 to discuss the next part of our Secret Garden book discussion. Bye-bye.